The Tampa Bay Times presenting Colon Cancer on the Rise, What Tampa Bay Needs to Know. A panel featuring former pro linebacker Shelton Quarles with Advent Health, March 11th at Higgins Hall in Tampa. Details at mytbtickets.com.
Your WUSF news, that's coming up at 12:04.
Soon, teens won't be able to vape in school restrooms. Hillsborough County Schools is installing vape detectors in schools across the county. I'm Kathy Carter, and today on Florida Matters, live and local, we're looking at how the district is trying to keep schools healthy. Do you worry about your teen vaping at school? Do you think vape detectors are a good idea? 813-755-6562 or Florida Matters at WUSF.org. Let us know. Also, we're speaking to Tampa's youngest city councilor, Naya Young. She was elected to the late Gwen Henderson seat and is up for re-election again. Hear more about what she's working on. And later, a couple of mermaids swam ashore to tell us more about their home. Won't want to miss it, so come back after these headlines.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Celebrations in Tehran this morning on news. A new supreme leader has been named to succeed his father, who was killed in Israeli strikes on the first day of the U.S.-Israel war against Iran. The developments met with mixed reactions, though, around the globe. NPR's Aya Batrawi has more on the 56-year-old successor.
A body known as the Assembly of Experts overwhelmingly chose Mojtaba Khamenei as Iran's new supreme leader. He's viewed as a hardliner with close ties to security who helped lead violent crackdowns on anti-government protesters. The paramilitary Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps congratulated Mojtaba Khamenei's ascension to succeed his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The IRGC said in a statement that it pledges obedience to the new leader and urged Iranians to heed his command in the face of, quote, bloodthirsty, arrogant powers. Political leaders in Iran and the country's Supreme National Security Council also pledged allegiance to the new leader. Iran's health ministry says U.S.-Israeli strikes have killed 1,200 people, a third of them women and children. Aya Batrawi, NPR News, Dubai.
The war in Iran pushed global crude oil prices past $100 per barrel for the first time in 4 years. NPR's Camila Dominowski reports the past week has caused traders to lose hope for a quick resolution to the conflict.
The Strait of Hormuz, a key waterway for the oil trade, remains effectively closed. The U.S. government has offered ship owners insurance and naval escorts for the passage, but the money available would only cover a fraction of the need, and companies are wary of risking ships and the lives of their crew. Attacks against infrastructure also continue, including Israel's attacks on oil facilities in Tehran over the weekend. An analyst with the app Gas Buddy says the average price of gasoline in the U.S. is likely to hit $4 this week. It was under $3 before the war began. Camila Dominowski, NPR News.
In a major win for employees at Voice of America, a federal judge has ruled Trump loyalist Kari Lake illegally ran its parent entity, the U.S. Agency for Global Media, last year. The court finds the mass layoffs Lake oversaw there and at VOA are void. NPR's David Folkenflik was the first journalist to question Lake's legal authority to run VOA.
Kari Lake and President Trump have attacked it as basically being propaganda and hostile to President Trump himself. She sought to effectively dismantle it. So she laid off hundreds and hundreds of employees at Voice of America and a couple of its sister networks. She tried to cut off funding from other networks like Radio Free Asia, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty that are funded by the federal government to reach other foreign lands. She canceled a contract for new headquarters that her predecessors said would save tens of millions of dollars for the federal government. And she basically tried to cut these things down to the bone to essentially make it impossible for them to continue to function.
That's NPR's David Folkenflik reporting. It's NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. The Florida House passed a bill Thursday to reform how homeowners associations work. Bill's sponsor, Republican Representative Juan Carlos Porras, says there's not enough recourse when HOAs impose fines and other penalties.
HOAs are a failed experiment. we have allowed for too long in this chamber to have a lack of complete oversight over what I believe is the smallest yet most powerful form of government.
The legislation creates a process for homeowners to dissolve an association and lets circuit courts set up dispute settlement programs. It also increases transparency requirements and consequences for board members who break rules. Meanwhile, HOA advocates emphasize they're run by homeowners and perform important services. Much of the bill also affects condo associations. A Senate committee has advanced a bill that would add work requirements to the Medicaid program. The Public Assistance Act would require the state to seek a federal waiver to create a system to check the work status of able-bodied adult recipients. Pensacola Republican Senator Don Gates is the bill's sponsor. He says it has multiple exemptions. They include those who are 65 or older, have a disability, live in a nursing home, are terminally ill, or are low-income parents with kids up to 13 years old.
If they aren't doing those things and they're able to work, then they should work. And if they do, I think it's good for them. It's good for their children. It's good for their grandchildren.
If it becomes law, state agencies will have to create a business plan on how to implement those requirements. The plan would have to be turned in by the end of the year for review by the state legislature. Hey, if you are planning to use northbound I-275 heading from Pinellas into Hillsborough County tonight into early tomorrow morning, listen up to this. The ramps onto the Howard Franklin Bridge from Ulmerton Road and 4th Street North will be closed for paving from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., weather permitting. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
WUSF brings you neighborhood sounds like this from a backyard beekeeper.
I'm going to move on to a different one because these guys look good.
From urban hives to country drives, WUSF is your spot for local.
The Community Foundation of Sarasota County presents the Giving Challenge, supporting more than 700 nonprofit organizations in Sarasota, Manatee, Charlotte, and DeSoto counties. April 15th and 16th. Learn more at givingchallenge.org.
You're listening to Florida Matters Live and Local, sponsored by Badawi Law, broadcasting from the Doctors, the Rain Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WUSF in Tampa. I'm Kathy Carter, in for Matthew Petty today. High school scofflaws, beware. If you're caught smoking in restrooms, you can soon be met with a warning.
Vape detected. Security verified. Vape detected. Security verified. Vape detected. Security verified.
Hillsborough County schools are installing Halo Smart sensors in every high school. They detect vape smoke, and educators are hoping to stop students from vaping and keeping them safe and healthy. Joining us to talk more about it, Rob Nelson, Regional Superintendent of Hillsborough County Public Schools, and Christine Marsh, the founder and president of Secure Us Solutions, the vendor. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Well, vape detectors in restrooms. Has it come to your child's school? Is this something you wish existed when you were in high school? You can join the conversation by calling 813-755-6562, or you can email us at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Rob, we'll start the conversation with you. How many schools are getting the Halo detectors?
So we're starting in 29 of our traditional high schools. We're getting 10 sensors at least put into those high schools with that. It's a process that started kind of in January. We piloted a couple of programs, but as of now, we're going to put them in our 30 traditional high schools.
And what made the district decide to install the vape detectors in the first place?
I think we've seen an uptick in vape, events in our schools. Obviously, as you spoke at the top of your show, obviously we're concerned about healthy living and young adolescents doing that with it. I think also students tend to smoke in our restrooms. And so obviously accountability is high for us. We've also interviewed a number of high school kids and kids throughout our district who just want to go in and use the restroom. And so I think a combination of both an uptick in some of those vape events and then interviewing our students led us to looking at vape sensors in our schools.
Well, we don't have hard data yet, but what do you expect will happen if a student does get caught, if the vape detectors do send their alarm? What is going to happen to these students if that happens? Is there any kind of
Yeah, I think ultimately when you're putting the vape detectors in there, and I think it's important, these detectors that we have gone with do so much more than vape. So obviously it's to make our restrooms and our buildings safer as well. But we hope it's a deterrent for one. I mean, our hope is not to just give consequences to that. Right. But we do have a student code of conduct. We do have a progressive code of conduct as well. So students will expect a consequence if caught vaping in our restrooms.
Okay, Christine, we'll turn to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about the technology behind the vape detectors?
Yes, happy to do so. So the technology behind Halo, it was designed specifically to go into places like bathrooms and locker rooms where privacy is first, the utmost of importance. So there is absolutely no recording of audio. There's no video whatsoever. And because of the nature of bathrooms and locker rooms and other areas like that where privacy is paramount, there had to be a technology that could measure environmental changes. And that is what Halo does. So there's multiple sensors in the device that simply monitors environmental changes, be those changes through air particle changes, through noise, and that is how it works. So there's absolutely no recording, no video, so it is always private.
Well, you brought along one of the detectors, so can we actually take a look at, see how it works?
Sure,
okay,
you sure
great.
can. So before I handle the Halo, because when I do, it will start talking to us.
Okay.
So there are multiple different settings and sensors that can be programmed to behave different ways depending on what it is sensing. Okay. So I will show it to you, and the first thing you're going to hear is a tamper alert, because as soon as it is moved, it is going to say someone is tampering with the device.
Right.
So let me show you that.
Okay.
Tampering detected. Security notified.
So the lights are customizable. The audio is customizable. And in addition to tampering, there are several other factors that will evaluate or sense as well. And of course, vape is another important one.
Of course.
So
I'm going to help you out with this one.
Okay.
Hopefully I can do my part correctly. But I'm going to try to elicit some smoke from from this, and let's see what happens.
Okay.
That's a bad vapor.
Let's
Vape
see.
detected.
Okay.
Security
Oh, and
notified.
it's green though. Okay.
So those lights can change just
Right.
depending on what the settings are, or even have them off completely.
Okay.
And so it's really up to them. Another one that's really important in bathrooms is the ability to measure noise. And the reason that is important is because during times when it detects excessive noise, it could be because of bullying or the onset of a fight. So it's more difficult to simulate that in a setting like this. So what I did was I programmed this to sense light versus dark, and then that should trigger the aggression one. So let's see.
Aggression detected. Security notified.
That prevented us from having to get in an argument in order to show that feature.
I could start yelling at you, but I didn't want to.
Please don't. So there's just a few things that it does.
Thank you so much, Christine, for that. And Rob, we'll get back to you now. The Halo Smart sensors were piloted in Bloomingdale High School. What was the result of that pilot program?
Obviously, very, very positive. We had piloted three different companies with that. We put them in two high schools. We had a Bloomingdale High School and Leonard High School. Very, very positive. Like we talked about, it measured a number of different things and even air quality on top of that. But they were pretty accurate. Definitely had to adjust the sensitivity on some of those things. But the administrations were very, very excited, and the kids that they've already installed them. We've installed them, I think, in 7 schools so far already, and the administrations, our school principals love them.
Okay. And what have teachers been saying about this? Are they concerned about the uptick in vaping as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody is. I mean, I think it's different. You know, back in the day when you're smoking cigarettes and doing those things, you had a very noticeable lingering smell and smoke that wouldn't dissipate. Obviously, with vaping, it's much, much different. You know, the smoke cloud can dissipate very quickly. I think a lot of those companies are tailoring it towards kids. So just being an educator and working with kids for so long, I think teachers, administrators, counselors were all very, very concerned with kids vaping and the development of their brains as they continue to grow.
What is the cost of this initiative for Hillsborough County Public Schools?
Yeah, we have to go back to the school board and take a look at that. I know we purchased 300 sensors at this point. Okay. And so, like I said, we are putting them in all the 29 traditional high schools. We'll see how the sensors go, and we'll look to see if we need to expand the project to our other schools within the district.
Well, we're talking vape detectors in school restrooms with Hillsborough County Public Schools Regional Superintendent Rob Nelson and the vendor of the detectors, Christine Marsh, head of Secure Us Solutions. Do you think that this device improves the learning environment, or do you have any other ideas when it comes to curb vaping on high school campuses? If you do, you can join the conversation by calling 813-755-6562. Or you can email us at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Rob, has there been any pushback? I know Christine says there's no recording audio or video, but is there any concern about privacy for the students?
None that have come through our office. We're in the obviously the initial stages of getting them installed. But we have been very clear, Christine has been very clear in our messaging to our stakeholders, to our families, and that it does not record anything whatsoever, that they do not have to worry about their privacy being violated. Simply whether it's an air quality issue or an aggression issue, that notification just goes to an app that notifies the response team at the school. Doesn't respond any other way but that it responded to a detection. And then our administrative and or response teams go over there. So nothing's recorded, but nothing at this point.
Yeah. Christine, have you been asked by educators how this might improve the learning environment?
I'm sorry?
How would this improve the learning environment? I'm sure you've had those kind of conversations with educators.
So there's a lot of research out that shows that when children vape, especially children vape, it really affects their cognitive development and their learning. There's a direct correlation to vaping and learning. So it will make a tremendous difference in the learning. And not only cognitive development, but also the mental health. And if we can get kids to stop vaping and not become addicted to nicotine, and or if they are addicted, to stop, then their minds will be focused on learning instead of vaping. So there's be a huge difference.
And to you, Rob, the same question. How do these detectors help improve the learning environment, would you say?
Like we said, it's definitely a deterrent.
Sure.
Nobody wants their kids vaping in school. And like I said, we surveyed a number of our high school students who just want to go in and use the restroom and get to class. So I think kids are feeling more comfortable about going into the restroom. I think it lowers the numbers in the restroom, or kids sitting in a stall, those type of things, because they know that there is no recording in a restroom. So it absolutely improves the learning environment. It makes kids feel safer.
Now, are we creating a system, though, that kids always have to worry about being under surveillance? Start with you, Rob.
I don't think so. I think at this day and age, and like I said, even interviewing some of the kids in the early returns off the 7 schools that we already have installed, a majority of our kids are feeling much, much better. They feel much, much safer. They feel more comfortable of going and using the restroom and then getting to class because they are not concerned with that. And obviously there's absolutely no video equipment whatsoever.
Sure.
It's just a notification off the air quality.
All right. Well, Christine, thank you. And I'm sure you've heard that kind of feedback as well from students as well. And that bullying aspect, of course, is in there as well as the vaping and the aggression sound. So, well, thank you for being here. We've been speaking to Hillsborough County Schools Regional Superintendent Rob Nelson and Christine Marsh, head of Secure Us Solutions, about the vape sensing detectors in high school restrooms. Again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Up next, we're going to dive into the legislative updates that are coming out of Tallahassee. And later, we sit down with some mermaids to talk sea life. You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local. More to come after this.
Funding for WUSF comes from listeners like you. And also, Advent Health. For everything your heart holds, Advent Health is here. Find nationally recognized heart care experts at FloridaHeartExperts.com. Brandon Business Machines. Brandon Business Machines is a locally owned and operated office equipment dealer and IT support company. They've been serving the Tampa Bay area for 44 years with copier and computer sales and service. Online at bbmusa.com.
Start the new year with clarity. Your $20 monthly gift strengthens fact-based reporting right here in West Central Florida and keeps trusted news accessible to everyone. In a year when our community needs reliable information more than ever, you can help lead the way. Begin your new year as a new member at WUSF.org, and thank you.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7, your spot for local.
And welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Kathy Carter in for Matthew Petty today. Well, Florida legislators have been struggling with a budget plan for the past few weeks. And short of a miracle, they'll need to formally announce the extension soon. And for more on what's happening in Tallahassee, we're joined by Douglas Soul from the Your Florida team here at WUSF. Douglas, thanks for joining us.
No, it's always a fun time to be on.
Well, the Florida Senate's proposal is around $115 billion, which is nearly $1.5 billion more than what the House wants. House Speaker Daniel Perez says the conversations are getting somewhere, but the dissent is high.
We have a fundamental disagreement on what the budget should look like for the state of Florida. The House believes we should spend less money. The Senate believes we should spend more money.
All right, Douglas. First off, what is going on presently with the Florida budget?
Honestly, not much. So there has not been a lot of conversation between the chambers about a final product. That assertion comes from the House Speaker himself. He said that they lightly talked about the disagreements over the last week, but hadn't had an abundantly huge conversation about it. He said that they haven't even agreed on that top number, yet alone some of the top appropriation numbers, yet alone how they're going to spend those appropriations. So we have a long way to go. And as you said it yourself, here soon we're awaiting word on either a legislative session extension or a special session call to figure out what they're going to do with the budget and tax package.
Yeah, but to remind our listeners, how much time is actually left to decide this? If they
there's a 72-hour cooling off period for the budget. So, the scheduled last day of session is Friday. So 72 hours before that would be needed, short of an extension call. There is kind of an important note I should add. When Perez talked to the press last week, he said the conversation was light. An interesting update happened right after. Apparently, the Senate President, Ben Albritton, had an impromptu conversation with the House Speaker after his kind of fury comments the other day. And there's also questions whether that was allowable under Senate and House public meeting laws. But there was that notable conversation, but short of some huge miracle, they're not getting that budget done by the end of session here.
So you say there's not a whole lot of conversation. So what are the main things the legislators are debating on then?
It's the $1.4 billion is a pretty far distance between the chambers here. There's a lot of debates, some of which are actually going to unfold today. I'm covering the House side in the Capitol this fine Monday afternoon, and they are taking up the Senate version of legislation that would recreate the governor's emergency spending fund, which has controversially been used for immigration enforcement action, such as the creation, for example, of Alligator Alcatraz in the Everglades. Now, the House is picking up the Senate version, which doesn't have guardrails on the governor's spending of that money. The House had previously passed legislation with guardrails, though the version that they picked up, there's an added amendment from a Republican that would add guardrails. So they're really divided on how much power the governor should have, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on emergency operations from hurricane response, in this case, immigration enforcement. And that's one of the notable divides, but that's just one divide of so many others. The philosophies, as this House Speaker said last week, are very different. The House Speaker wants an abundantly big tax package and also wants to minimize spending more so than the Senate side. And, looming over all this is a projected deficit in the budget in the coming years. So that's prompting some of the urgency from the House lawmakers.
So what does happen if they don't extend this? They have to extend it at a certain period. You said there was a cooling off period. So what are we looking at for a special session on this? Or
so they have to do. The only thing in the state constitution lawmakers have to do is pass a budget bill. So they have to do this. And if they don't do it by July 1st, we're looking at a partial government shutdown. And yeah, so the budget, once it's completed, before it gets a final vote, there is a cooling off period required. So if they don't reach the necessary time period, they're going to have to do, as stated, two things. One of two things. They can either extend the session as they did last year. They also couldn't come to an agreement last year, and they had an extension that lasted a month and a half. Or they could call a special session to deal with the budget at a later time. Obviously, there's time to work with. Last session started 2 months later than this session, so the time period before July 1st was a lot more confined. They've got a couple more months to work with to figure it out this time around. But there's also already a called special session for a potential redistricting effort, and all sides are adamant that they want to put something on the ballot in 2026 in November to change how the property tax works in Florida. And they haven't done that yet, and it's not looking like that's going to be done this session. So I would expect another special session call to address that at some point this spring, early summer.
No vacation for you, Douglas Zoll, in Tallahassee. That's what I'm getting from this.
That is not looking good.
Well, the Senate has their own bill as well that's still in the works. That's going to be create school guardians. It's the school safety bill. SB 896 says faculty at Florida's colleges and universities may soon be able to carry guns on campus as part of state lawmakers' planned expansion of the school guardian program. That is set to go to the Senate floor tomorrow. The bill was proposed by Senator Don Gates. What is going on with that bill?
Yeah, some important context to that bill. Last year, lawmakers were in the Capitol when the FSU shooting occurred.
Right.
It was, I think a pretty jarring experience for everyone involved. I mean, the FSU campus is, you turn a street off the Capitol and you can see the Westcott Fountain, the landmark fountain of the FSU campus that you see on the postcards. So they're very close to one another. And it was very close to home for the lawmakers, at least as they say in Tallahassee. Right. This is one of their approaches to address that situation. As stated, it creates the ability for the sheriffs to set up guardian programs at universities. It also allows the universities and colleges, public universities and colleges, to appoint guardians among their faculty members and employees that would be gun-bearing and could, in their mind, step in the case of another tragedy such as occurred last year.
All right, Douglas, we have about a minute left to go. So before we do leave it, is there anything else of note happening at the Capitol this week that we need to be paying attention to?
One of the interesting things here, and the one thing, a little bit of context here, this is going to be a wild week. You're going to see bills bouncing between the chambers. The same bill bouncing between the chambers quite often as the different sides amend it to their more likely, and so they can resolve their differences. But, some of the big bills that we've covered haven't passed yet. The House at the beginning of the session passed a bill that would, for example, lower the long gun buying age to 18. It was raised to 21 after the Parkland shooting. There's an effort to expand E-Verify, the work eligibility checker. There's, on the Senate side, the Senate, of course, wants Senate President Auburn's priority of rural renaissance, which would expand resources to rural communities. There's a lot of big bills that have only passed one chamber. So it's not just the budget the sides can't agree on. It's big policy priorities that have had a lot of eyes on them. So can they overcome the differences on those measures before session ends? We don't know. We're going to find out.
All right, Douglas. Well, thank you for your good work. We'll be paying a lot of attention to your reporting and the Your Florida team here at WUSF covering all that important work in Tallahassee. Up next, the youngest woman on Tampa's City Council joins us. You're listening to Florida Matters Live and Local. More to come after this.
On the next Fresh Air, the hidden history of blackface and how amateur minstrel shows featuring white people in blackface permeated American culture in the North and the South. Even President Roosevelt was a fan. Join us.
Great conversation on Fresh Air tonight at 7 on WUSF.
WUSF depends on contributions from people like you. And Badawi Law, offering legal services in personal injury, immigration, and auto accidents, with offices in Tampa, Florida. Office information and practice details at badawilaw.com or learn more on Instagram at Badawi Law.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Kathy Carter, in for Matthew Petty this afternoon. Tampa City Councilor Naya Young made history late last year, becoming the youngest woman to serve. In October, the 33-year-old took office after a special election was held when incumbent City Councilor Gwendolyn Henderson passed away. Councilwoman Young has been finishing the work of her predecessor, learning the life of an elected official while also trying to make her own priorities for the city come to life. If you want to join the conversation or have questions for Councilor Young, you can call us at 813-755-6562, or you can email us at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Councilwoman Young, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you've been on the job about 130 days now. What have you been learning? What have residents been telling you?
Well, definitely been learning a lot of patience, not just with myself, but but with the process as well. But with that also comes, being consistent and making sure you're staying, up to date and in the know about what you want to see in the community. And then and just really learning like the inner workings of everything and how the city works, from all the way, to our, bigger departments to, our, local. So it's been really, really interesting. And I really enjoyed that. And it helps me to be able to do my job even better because I know how things are working in the inner workings. And then as far as what I'm hearing from the community, people are just wanting to want more, transparency, more accountability, which is something that I've always spoke about. And so that's something that our office has definitely been working on, and just, being more transparent about, this is what's happening. This is why it's taking so long. This is why this is not happening, and just being more accountable.
Now, when you ran, your platform was based on a few things: youth empowerment, economic development, better transportation and housing. How have these past few months better informed your vision for Tampa?
Oh, yes, definitely. And I made sure to stay true to those. Definitely, I'll speak, just recently with you. So now each council member gets, I think like 8 or so times where they can have someone do the invocation. And so I did my first invocation last Thursday, and it was a second grader from Potter Elementary. And so for me, just having youth be involved in the process and be celebrated and to be invited in these spaces, I think is really important. And so I've been staying true to that, and meeting with different, going to the schools and talking with, youth groups. So that's been really exciting for me. And then I continue to kind of speak about and talk with whether it be, staff or administration about some of the things that community wants to see, which aligns with some of those platforms that I ran on, seeing better transportation, having our youth be involved, having more, accountability and transparency as I was speaking before, more housing, but not just affordable housing, but also different housing options for different family sizes and for different income levels. So all of those things I've been, making sure to stay true to.
Now, you represent District 5. Tell us a little bit more about District 5. What makes it unique? What are some of its specific challenges?
I would say what makes District 5 unique is one, it's people. We are one of the most diverse districts, which I think is really cool. We have a lot of history in our area, in our district, and so many. I mean, I've get to go to so many different either businesses or events or visit organizations and all throughout the district that are doing work in our district. And so I think that's what really makes us unique. It's a true definition of what like community looks like. You have all different types of people from different backgrounds coming together in one space. And I would say, there's definitely some needs and more needs in other areas of the district than you would see in some other spaces. But we're definitely seeing some communities that are wanting to see a little bit more investment that haven't seen it historically in the past. And I think that's where the, being transparent and accountable comes, admitting that, there are some areas that we haven't invested in some time. And now how do we move, now that we know that and we're accountable for it, how do we move forward and do the right thing and start putting some investment? So that's one of the things that I've been focusing on.
Now, we mentioned the special election was called after the passing of City Councilor Gwendolyn Henderson last summer. You were elected in October. What motivated you to run in the first place? And what was it like gaining support in that short amount of time?
Yes. Well, prior to City Council, I worked in nonprofit. I was working at my family's nonprofit for the past 8 years. I was executive director, and we work with children and families. And a lot of the issues that we see in some communities throughout the district are some of the issues that a lot of my families were facing, whether it be housing, trying to find somewhere affordable, having reliable transportation, being able to find a stable job, like all of these things that my families were facing. And so, you get to a point where it's like, okay, I've been doing this for some time. What is the next step for me? And, they always say, if you ask for something, be prepared to receive it. And so a friend of mine came in to me and said, you should really run for city council. You've worked in the community pretty much all your life, which I have since I was a teenager, probably even before then. And I said, all the issues. And I did. And I was like, this really me? They're like, yes, you. I think you'd be perfect at it. And so I took some time and I thought about it and I said, well, I do know a lot of the issues. I have worked in community for all my life. All I've ever known is community. And so so I was like, well, let me see, and it just so happened that people were really supportive of me. And all along the way, I just kept getting, more support and these confirmations and people like, I really think you can do this. Like, we really want to see you, in that seat. I think you'd be great. And so I just kind of, I kept with it. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah, you did mention that you worked in your family's nonprofit. You did spend some time too as executive director of the Tampa Heights Junior Civic Association. How did that role prepare you for your role now as city councilor?
Just knowing the issues. I think it's again, a lot of my families, dealt with some of the same issues that I'm seeing right now, and so I was already kind of privy to, what our families are going through, what people are going through, and I think that kind of helped me prepare. Also, because I think there is a level of like empathy that you have to have as well, because it helps you to understand versus, you're just someone that's in a seat or sitting on a dais and you don't know what real people are actually going through. And so I think that really is just kind of helped me to prepare. And then just, again, throughout my life, I've always worked in community, since I was a teenager. My family or my grandparents would have me at community meetings and we go to city council. I've, gone to Tallahassee doing all these things. So I've kind of just always been immersed in it. And I think that has definitely kind of helped me and prepared and has guided me to this point.
Now, you'll be serving out the remainder of Councilor Henderson's term that ends in 2027. What are your goals between now and then? Any kind of specific issue that was really is passionate for you?
Yeah, so I definitely, realizing that it's not a whole lot of time, but I definitely want to be able to make a positive impact. I want to start to really see again some development in some of those areas that we talked about that haven't seen some development in time. One, I know that has come up at our past council meeting. I just made a motion for to have the Sulphur Springs Neighborhood Action Plan come to council because they just finished it.
Okay.
So have them come in and actually present what the findings were and see how can we move that forward. And then also just really, I've always spoke about the importance of collaboration. I think that comes from my nonprofit background because being in a smaller nonprofit, a lot of times you can't do a lot of the things on your own. So you have to rely on your community partners and collaborations. And I think it can work at this level as well, being able to work with our community partners to help our communities. So that's something that I really want to do. And really, I just really want to start to see, some projects that that the city has really start to move forward in those communities.
We are speaking with Tampa City Councilor Naya Young about her first few months in the job. She won a special election in November. You can ask the Councilwoman questions, join the conversation by calling 813-755-6562. You can also email us at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Naya, we mentioned you're young and there was a lot of excitement around your campaign. It seems you had support from a lot of different sectors. Where do you think that all came from?
I think that it came from people wanting to see something different. I think because, I was a new candidate, I was a first time candidate. And the way that I approached it was, I say I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant. I'm here to serve the people and to serve the public in the best way that I can and the best way that I know how. And I stayed true to that. And I think that just in a time where it seems that there's so many things that we are questioning, to have someone to come in and really just care about people and want to do right by people and figure out, okay, how can we make this better without any, ulterior motive? I think that kind of it's like a breath of fresh air. And I say this as during the campaign when I was speaking with people, this is what people were telling me. And I think also, to be transparent, just being myself, my authentic self, which I think is important. And just really just having a heart for community and really caring for people. I say it all the time, and I say it because I mean it. I really just want to do the best job that I can, using the resources that I have, collaborating with whoever we can to really make the community better. And work together, because I think that's something that we really need right now is people coming together and working together to make their communities better.
Now, at a Cafe Con Tampa event last month, and you spoke a little bit about it there and here about your grandmother and your parents instilling in you the values of service, community, and education. I imagine you'd like a lot of younger families to instill that in their kids as well.
Yes, yeah. I think it's so important too because it's because I had those experiences and those opportunities that I've been able to just do so much, and I've also had really great mentors as well. When I went to Howard for my master's in political science. I had a great mentor while I was there as well, and she. Dr. Elsie Scott, and she also kind of helped me as well. And we would talk, and she would take me to places with her and conferences with her, and that was where I worked on my very first federal grant that came out of the Obama administration, out of the COPS office for youth and community policing, and she entrusted me and my other fellow graduate students to work on this grant. And so I think being able to have those opportunities and having people that believe in you and wanting to pass on their knowledge to you is important. And that's something that I want to do as well, because if we don't pass it on, if we don't give the chance, if we don't give the opportunity, then our next generation of leaders, what will they have when it's their time? So it's our jobs to continue to pass on so that the work doesn't just stop at one generation.
We have about a minute left, and we'll end with a couple of weeks ago. that you filed for re-election for the Tampa elections next year. I know you've only been on the job for a couple of months, but you already foresee what you might be looking forward in your second term if you were to win re-election.
I'm really looking forward to, if the people will have me, to having that full term, to really see some projects through, to be able to be here for a full term, to have that 4 years. So I'm hoping that the people will have me, and we can continue to work together and collaborate and just continue to uplift our communities.
Well, we've been speaking to Tampa City Councilor Naya Young. She's the youngest woman elected to the position. Naya Young, we hope you'll come back and join us on Florida Matters Live and Local to speak more about what you've been working on in the future. And thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, in just a few moments, we will be talking to mermaids. Yep, we're talking to mermaids. You're listening to Florida Matters Live and Local. More to come after this.
I'm Peter O'Dowd. Politico is reporting the war in Iran could cost the United States $2 billion a day, and the White House will have to ask for more money to support the effort. Will Congress be willing to fund it? That's next time on Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
Support for WUSF comes from listeners like you and from Seitenbacher with a new web shop. Healthy muesli, cold-pressed oils, and vegetable broth mix delivered to your door from right here in Tampa Bay. Details at Seitenbacher.com. Seitenbacher. Seitenbacher. The Traveling Wilburys Tribute Tour with the music of the Beatles, ELO, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, and Roy Orbison all in one night. At Sarasota's Riverview Performing Arts Center, March 12th. More at riverviewperformingarts.com.
I'm Helen Lee. I'm a WUSF Stephen Noble digital social news intern. During my time at WUSF, I've learned to write clearly, concisely, and with you in mind. Being part of the newsroom has given me hands-on reporting experience alongside professional journalists. You allow us to grow into the next generation of storytellers. Thank you so much for your support.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Kathy Carter, in for Matthew Petty this afternoon. Well, Florida is the home of the mermaids. Everybody knows it, and tucked away in the quaint little rural town of Lecanto, not far from Crystal River, sits an aquarium where you can see the mermaids swim. But it is much more than that. The Taylor Aquarium is Citrus County's only full-scale indoor education aquarium. It's complete with mermaids, stingrays, and rescue macaws. It's really quite an experience. The aquarium blends education, entertainment, and storytelling to inspire real connections between people and the sea. And joining us from the aquarium is Eric Ducharme, the founder and owner of Taylor. Welcome, Eric.
Thanks for having us.
And Hannah Seach, a mermaid and the community engagement coordinator at Taylor.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for both for being here. Now, Eric, tell me more about the aquarium. What can people expect when they visit?
So when you come to Taylor's Mermaid Aquarium Encounter, you said it right off the bat. You get education, entertainment, all in one, under one roof. A very small roof, but we do a very good job at making it very special. And it's a very immersive experience. So you're being entertained and you're learning at the same time, and you just don't know it.
Now, you opened Taylor 5 years ago. What inspired you to open the aquarium?
So Taylor's actually been open for over 20 years, making mermaid tails, but it was always a dream of mine to have a facility where we could have live mermaid shows. Mm-hmm. And it turned into something bigger where I wanted to open up an educational aquarium in a very unique small place in Florida, where I grew up and was born and raised. So it was important to give back to the community in my own way. So 5 years ago, we decided to open up Taylor's Mermaid Aquarium Encounter.
How did you do it? How exactly did it work that you were able to acquire the ocean wildlife to begin with and make this vision come true?
Much like my life, nothing's ever planned. That's how it happened. So we bought the building thinking that we were just going to utilize the entire space for our manufacturing side of the business, making mermaid tails. And having our mermaid show in our showroom, well, our showroom ended up being transformed into the educational portion of today's Mertailer, and then the rest of it is our mermaid show.
Now, you mentioned the company is older than just the aquarium. You've been making these mermaid tails. How long have you been doing that? And did you wake up one day and say, I'm going to make a mermaid tail today? And how did that start for you?
I think like any other little child, they see something and they have a vision and a dream, and they just want to see if they can make it into a reality. So like me, I mean, there's total transparency here. Fell in love with the mermaids at Weeki Wachee Springs, and worked there for a little bit, made mermaid tails, and wanted to do my own thing. And then created Mertailer and created mermaid tails, and ended up opening up the aquarium. So
in that aspect of the business, how many tails do you make, say, in a year?
That's a tough one. The tail side is a tough thing. We make hundreds of tails, thousands of tails every year. But I mean, most importantly, we're making dreams come true, and we're educating people about wildlife, utilizing mermaids as the hook.
Yeah, the entry point, right. Well, Hannah, you are one of the mermaids at Mertailer. What is it like being a mermaid?
It's a lot. It's fast-paced. It's multitasking at all times. But it's just a lot of training and a lot of hard work.
Now, how long have you been doing your job?
Well, this specific role I've been in for almost a year now, actually. But mermaiding in general has been something I've done since childhood, from mermaid summer camp all the way up to summer jobs, to birthday parties, to now getting to swim in a real professional tank.
How is it like swimming in the tank? Do you have a choreographed routine?
Everything's choreographed, even down to our breaths. We are always communication with our control booth, tells us where our hose is. And it's funny because people will ask, like, can you see? Do you have special contact lenses? And we are just as blind as you are underwater. When you're swimming for a show, you're kind of swimming blind, as if you can't see anybody, but there's a whole crowd there, so you give it your all. But yeah, it can be very, feel a little like a bubble that you're in, and you have your specific control booth person who's kind of your person that if you're doing well. They're letting you know where your hose is, where you need to breathe, those kinds of things.
Now, you're not just a mermaid. You do other things for Mertailer outside of the aquarium. What else do you do?
Yes, I am also their community engagement coordinator. When I stepped into the role as mermaid, I do come with a bit of a business background. So it's been really great to utilize that skill set to support such a great company in such a great area, that we can bring more educational facilities to the area.
So between the two, what does a typical day look like at work for you as mermaid?
Oh, gosh. First thing in the morning, I come in and I find Eric and I corner him and I go through all the things that we need to get done with anything with community outreach, any events we have coming up, keeping everybody on track with a calendar, as we joke about at work. And then usually we'll do some kind of dry practice for the morning, depending on what shows we're running that day. We do have our chores in the morning like any other job that has to do. And then once we open those doors, then we are front and center for, meeting customers, educating on whether you're doing the Stingray tank or the Sea Star tank. And then you do your show, shower, do it all again, get to the end of the day, and then corner Eric again to try and figure out what else we're doing.
Some little girls out there will be very heartbroken to know that a mermaid has chores. Now, if you're just joining us, we are speaking to a couple mermaids. Eric Ducharme is the founder and owner of Mertailer, and Hannah Seach, in addition to being a mermaid, we just mentioned she's the community engagement coordinator at Mertailer. So back to the aquarium for a bit, Eric. Our producer visited Mertailer a few weeks ago. She had a great time. She got to touch starfish, play with some stingrays, apparently very playful. I did not know that. And she saw the mermaid show, of course. You also have a macaw rescue. How many rescues do you have, and how did you get into that?
So actually, believe it or not, a lot of the wildlife that we have at Mertailer's Mermaid Aquarium Encounter has actually been rehomed or in a rescue type of situation. All the birds, we do have an aviary at Mertailer that is filled with macaws and cockatoos. And I say filled, right? I think we actually have between 10 and 12 birds. The rescue first started, my husband and I, we love animals. And when we finally got life situated, we decided that we were going to start a little macaw rescue, just personally.
Right.
And it started out like that. But when we bought the building, the concept was we need to get the birds out of the house. Like it's time to get the house back to our home. So I said, we're going to have the mermaid exhibit on one side of the building. We need to create this massive aviary on the other side of the building. I thought it would be great enrichment for the birds. We get them out of their cages and let them just, frolic and have free flight. So we created the aviary, and the macaws got adjusted to the aviary life, which is great. They get daily enrichment,
Sure.
and enrichment from the guests as well. I mean, the guests will sit over there and they will dance and they will make faces and the birds will bob back and forth, and it's actually really rewarding to watch. But actually, believe it or not, you would be surprised how many people drop off fish at our doorstep,
Really?
or ask if we're able to take in a shark or a 900-pound grouper, and we do our best to try to take it all. So we're working on our efforts to grow in the very near future, so we can continue to do that and basically give native and non-native wildlife from people's homes a second chance. It's also, like I said, giving people an education as well. So we're utilizing the second chance opportunity to educate people, and that's really meaningful.
So, Hannah, back to you and the show itself. When you perform, you're actually swimming with the sea life, and there are a couple of sharks in the tank with you, some stingrays. What's it like to be in there with sharks and stingrays and all that?
Some people might think it's really dramatic and really nerve-wracking, and frankly, they all have their own personalities that you get to know over time, and they are just such amazing creatures that, they get when the show is happening. They know the music, and they go and they settle down, and they take their break, and they know, okay, the mermaid's going, and then it's our turn. But really, it's just magical. It's so much fun, and it's really cool when you have that moment where Zena's our zebra shark, if she crosses right at the perfect moment that I'm doing the flip, and sometimes it just even almost looks so perfect it's choreographed, but it's not. So it's just really, it's all about dancing around them, making sure that they're safe, making sure that we're out of their way, but also giving a magical performance.
Yeah, a producer who saw the show said some of the sharks were laying down during certain parts of the show, and then they got up and swam. So they really just kind of know.
Yeah, it's just, I really believe it's such a dance. And again, so important we have the control booth person to let us know where they are so we do not hurt them and that we are always aware of their surroundings. But it is truly a dance with them that is not choreographed. And it's just a lot of practice. But
yeah. And Eric, you were a merman.
I am, yes. So I do swim in our shows as well. It's not something that you see regularly. You either come to the aquarium hoping you're going to see me swim, or you're shocked that you're seeing me swim. But it's magical. I mean, I love performing, and I love making people happy, and I love doing things that are not normal, which are normal for me. But it's very special. And, I started my swimming as a merman in the Florida Springs, but being able to swim in a saltwater environment with these creatures is really super magical. Hannah mentioned their safety and their personality. They know us. Yeah. As crazy as I may sound by saying that, people may say, well, sharks and stingrays are not that smart. They're not mammal-like. Well, they do know us. They have memory. They have senses, and it's very, very special and honorable to work around and with them. Especially, they seek our attention at the worst possible times.
We have to wrap things up pretty soon, so we just want to make sure, Hannah, you talk about your costume real quick. Just a little bit about your mermaid costume.
Absolutely. Made by the one and only Eric Ducharme. This silicone beauty is about probably 30 to 40 pounds of full silicone. It is fitted to your measurements exactly. So if you would like one of your own, there is mertailor.com to head to. But this is our full costume that we perform in for our show.
Well, thank you both for being here. Eric Ducharme, the founder and owner of Mertailor, and Hannah Seach, mermaid and the community engagement coordinator at Mertailor. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Florida Matters executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producers are Amelie Horse and Quincy Walters. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Gio Govan. And Jackson does compose the music, where Buckholz handled the video. You can subscribe to Florida Matters wherever you get your podcasts and watch on WUSF's YouTube channel. I'm Kathy Carter in for Matthew Petty. Thanks so much for listening and watching today.
Trade.
Huge responses from across Europe, from the Danish Prime Minister.
Climate. Picture this all filled with ice.
Security.
Not only do we need to end the war, we also need to prevent the next war.
These are global